Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Sabbath services. Title of this message will be Trouble, Sin, and Satanic Flip. We'll find out what a satanic flip is because that's the worst of all. Okay? But before we get into it, I want to read you something. Now, when we look at Revelation 13 concerning the beast, what is distinguished by this beast? How it looks. There are 7 heads and 10 horns, right? Okay. Now, this beast is a combination of worldwide events and controls that are going to happen. Okay. Now, when we read in the Old Testament about Assyria coming against Israel, that is true. But we also have to understand this. All the nations of Europe surround the Assyrians, the Germans, the Czechs, and the Austrians. And they've always had trouble with them, right? Okay? All the way through, going clear back to Napoleon. And what happens with Europe? It happened 3 times. Napoleon wanted to conquer Russia, failed. World War I, they wanted to conquer Russia, but they couldn't do it. So they made an agreement with the Russians that they would send Trotsky, who was the father of communism in Russia, by sealed train if they would not attack German forces when they retreated and would not attack them after they had retreated because they needed all of the soldiers to fight in Europe because America was entering the war. Okay? So then what did we have in World War II? What did we have? Same thing again. Attack on Poland, attack on the rest of the tribes of Israel, France and Belgium and the Netherlands and Britain and Norway. Sweden was neutral and Finland was neutral. Okay? They did the same thing. Why? Because it's the same demon spirits running the show. Okay? So what happened? They tried bombing Britain, but they had to give up on it because Hitler wanted to attack and take care of Russia. Okay? He made one fatal mistake. He didn't start early enough, and he got caught in one of the worst winters possible, and they had to bring the forces back, and they froze and were killed, and so forth. So, in Europe, you do have the influence of Assyria. Okay? Now, what do we have in America? Do we not have all 12 tribes of Israel here in America? We have Jews, we have French, we have Dutch, we have Belgium, right? Okay? We've got Brits, we have Scotland, we have Norway, we have Sweden, we have Finland, right? Okay? They're all here. So when it talks about Israel, in the end times, we need to distinguish America from Europe. Now, look at how things are happening right now in Europe. Europe is ready to sever ties with America. that is scriptural. That is fulfilling prophecy. So who's left together? Ephraim and Manasseh, right? And Manasseh was to be a great single nation. Okay? Now, let's think on this for a minute. The beast in Revelation 13 is not the Assyrian alone. Maybe the beast head will come from Syria, but remember, there are how many heads? 7. Now, we have 2 association of nations, and the participants in them change from time to time. We have what is called what? The G what? 7, right? Okay. Now then, we also have what is called the G20, right? Okay. So at the end time, it's entirely different. Now, I'm going to post online, I'll read part of it here. I'm going to post online a speech given by a high-level Chinese as to their ambitions for America. And this was given in 2003. Okay? So let me read you a quote here, very interesting. Now remember, 2023 is just weeks away, so this is 20 years old. Okay? And this was translated from Chinese into English by the Epoch Times. Now, the Epoch Times is a paper in San Francisco run by the Taiwanese Chinese. Okay? So they are anti-mainland communist. Okay? So here I'll read to you what he says. We are not as foolish as to want to perish together with America by using nuclear weapons. Okay? Now then, I believe China, because what is the main necessary thing for China? Food. That's right. They have to import some 60% or more of their food, more like 70. Listen to what he has to say. Despite the fact that we have been exclaiming that we will have the Taiwan issue resolved at whatever cost, only by using non-destructive weapons that can kill many people will we be able to reserve America for ourselves. There has been rapid development in modern biological technology. What is that lab called in China? The Wuhan lab. And they're so smart that they got old traitor Fauci to send them the money to make the biological weapons that will kill us. Think on that, okay? Now, he said this in 2003, and new bioweapons have been invented one after another. Of course, we have not been idle. In the past years, we have seized the opportunity to master weapons of this kind. We are capable of achieving our purpose of cleaning up America all of a sudden. Now, I want you to piece this together with all the immigrants coming through. What are the majority of the immigrants coming? Are they women? No. They are young men, single. They are fit for an army. Now, I want you to think how quickly something could happen in America that nobody's expecting. See? Are we going to find where they are? Do we know who they are? We know nothing about them, do we? See? Now, this is not happening by accident. This is deliberate. And who is helping to finance all the drugs, and especially fentanyl? The Chinese. See? What did they say? When Comrade Xi Jinping was still with us, the Party Central Committee had the perspicacity to make the right decision not to develop aircraft carrier groups and focused instead on developing lethal weapons that can eliminate mass populations of the enemy country. We are the enemy. Okay. Question. Let's ask a question. Who runs the World Health Organization? China. Right? Trump took us out of the World Health Organization and Biden put us back in. Look at what has happened since then. See? Now, trust this. God is the one who is doing it. Okay? He's doing it. Let's go on. And to focus instead on developing lethal weapons that can eliminate mass populations of the enemy country. Now, if you can't kill them all, you can make them sick and debilitated. Can you stand up and fight when you're sick? No. Okay. From a humanitarian perspective, we should issue a warning to the American people and persuade them to leave America. They're telling us, you get up and get out of here. Listen to the rest of it. And leave the land that they have lived in to the Chinese people. Remember, 20 years ago. Or at least they should leave half of the United States to be China's colony because America was first discovered by Chinese. Now, this gives you a real clue into the thinking of the Chinese. But would this work? If this strategy does not work, then there's only one choice left to us. That is, use divisive means to clean up America. Are we divided? Do we have problems? Do we have a Manchurian president in the office of the President of the United States, doing every decision to benefit China? And reserve America for our use in a moment. Our historical experience has proven that as long as we make it happen, no one in the world can do anything about us. Why? Because they have purchased most of the rest of the world, especially in the underdeveloped countries, right? Yep. Furthermore, if the United States as the leader is gone, then other enemies have to surrender to us. Now, I've got the whole speech we're going to post online. And I have some other comments that I have written up that I will have added to it. Okay? That's why today we have troubles, sin, and satanic flip. Okay? So let's look at some of these so we know where we are going. Okay? We'll look at some of the Psalms. Let's look at the troubles or problems. Psalm 34. Now, we have plenty of problems, don't we? Now stop and think for a minute. Look at all the sickness. Look at all the disease. Look at all of those who are paid by the state to not work. Okay? Then also look at the high number of senior citizens in the population of America. Okay? Then look at all of the young generation. They have been programmed to think in satanic terms. They have been programmed to hate America. Who does that benefit? Huh? The Chinese and their army of immigrants. Now, what do you think the Chinese are going to do when they take control? Because they will. They already control us behind the scenes in many things. Okay? They're going to be the hand of God's punishment against this nation. They're going to kill as many homosexuals as they can. They're going to take the homeless on the streets and send them off to work camps to work them to death. They're going to take all the food that they can harvest in America, because when the Chinese go across America and they see mile after mile after mile of wheat and corn and barley and soybean, and look at orchards and vineyards, and then they look at their country in comparison, okay? They know they don't have enough food. All right? So let's come to Psalm 34, okay? Psalm 34, verse 1. I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall always be in my mouth. And that's what we need to be doing, okay? My soul shall make its boast in the Lord. The humble shall hear and be glad. O magnify the Lord with me and exalt his name together. I sought the Lord, and he answered me and delivered me from all my fears. And that's what we need, see. Now is the time that we really stay close to God in everything we do, okay? They looked to him and were radiant, and their faces were not ashamed, verse 5. This poor man cried, and the Lord heard and saved him out of all his troubles. See? And I can tell you this, every single one of us have a handful of problems and troubles, right? Every one of us. So we've got to put them all in God's hands and ask him to help and to work it out, okay? Now drop down here to verse 15. So here's what to understand. In spite of all that's going on in the world and in the nation or wherever you're living, verse 15, the eyes of the Lord are open to the righteous. That's why it's important that we stay close to God. See? Now, what is the church like in the end time? Revelation 3. Lukewarm. But compared to the evil world, they think they're red hot. But compared to God and what God wants, they're lukewarm. And look at the Protestants. They're getting worse by the day. I surveyed them the other day, and the only thing they can do is give the same Franklin Millymouth come to the Lord and have songs and praise. And they tell you you want to have peace of mind. Okay? But I can tell you this. No one's going to have peace of mind unless they love and obey God and keep his commandments. See? Because the day is over for people to think that if they use some of the scriptures, we're just fine. See? Everything they need to know about the troubles coming upon them is found in the Old Testament that they reject. Okay? Notice, the eyes of the Lord are upon the righteous, and his ears are open to their cry. The face of the Lord is against those who do evil, to cut off the memory of them from the earth. And eventually that will happen. See? So this is a prophecy that goes clear to what? Revelation 20, right? All the wicked cast into the lake of fire, right? And Satan removed forever to the blackest darkness of wherever that is in the universe. Okay. The righteous cry, and the Lord hears and delivers them out of all their troubles. Okay. Now, verse 18 is the key. This is the attitude that we need to have. Not be lifted up, not be demanding, but yielding to God. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and save those who are of a contrite spirit. Many. So look at that again. See, what we're going through, living in the end time. Now, we just need to realize this, brethren. All the prophecies of God are true, right? They're going to happen. Not one is going to fall short. Okay? Now, Christians are going to have to be living in the end time when the world is going to hell in a handbasket, right? Okay. Now, it's difficult. See? Isn't it difficult when everything you see, hear, and look at in the world is based on something from Satan, the devil? See? Even that which appears good. But we have to live in it and stay close to God. See? We're not going to change the world. We're not going to slow down prophecy. We're not going to speed up prophecy. But we look to God and trust in him for everything. Okay? Verse 19. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all. Okay? Let's go on to Psalm 25. Now, as I mentioned here recently, the Bible is the most important book in the whole world, and the only book in the world that tells us the true history of mankind, the rise and fall of nations, the only book in the world that tells us about what God is doing through Abraham, then Isaac, Jacob, the 12 tribes, down through to Christ and to the church, and everything down through history. Can you imagine? There is no other book in the world to do that. Okay. Now, a little sidebar. I saw an interview on Fox Business, and it was by this man who was a physicist. And he wrote this book. But I thought it was about how hydrogen energy can be contained if it's in a complete magnetic sphere in the middle of it. And hydrogen energy has much more than nuclear, and it doesn't have all of the fallout of it. So I thought the book was on it. His last name is DeGracy. Okay? He is an astronomist who studies the heavens. So I got the book yesterday. And I thought, well, I'm going to look in it and see about this hydrogen energy. Had nothing to do with it. It was like the musings of Job without God, about human life, and about the heavens, and about the earth, and how one generation comes and one generation goes. We'll look at that again. But the thing is, he's looked at as one of the smartest men in the world, but what? He is so ignorant that he doesn't go to the Word of God. And that's the way the world is. Okay? Psalm 25, verse 1. To you, O Lord, do I lift up my soul, O my God. I trust in you. Do not let me be ashamed. Let not my enemies triumph over me. Okay? Now, if you stay close to God, he will do this. Let none of them triumph over you. None who wait on you be ashamed. Let them be ashamed who treacherously deal without cause. Show me your ways, O Lord. Teach me your paths. Lead me in your truth and teach me, for you are the God of my salvation. On you do I wait all the day long. See? Now, this is what we have to do in our relationship with God. The world is going to go, we're going to see bunkers, okay? There's no way around it, okay? Now then, let's come to Psalm 54. Very interesting. It's a short psalm. So here's what we do. And this has to be our prayer every day. Because what's going to happen? We're going to find out. We're going to be surprised with another trouble. So we need to stay close to God. Okay? Save me, O God, by your name, and vindicate me by your might. Hear my prayer, O God, and give ear to the words of my mouth. Now, there are going to be times you're going to be really desperate, and you won't know what to do. You will be so frustrated because you can't get things that settled out or worked out, because the people you have to deal with, especially in the world, are going to be acting against you, because what is the world filled with? Liars and cheats and everything like that. Okay? But God, if you come to him and do your part, he will rescue you. And it will be almost like a miracle. Okay? God will do that. Verse 3, for strangers have risen up against me, and violent men seek after my soul. They have not set God before them. Selah. Okay? But can God even make the wicked do right for the sake of his people? Yes. Remember, after Nebuchadnezzar conquered Jerusalem and burned it to the ground, scorched it, just like it says, almost like fire and brimstone. Everything was destroyed because one man wouldn't listen to Jeremiah. That was Zedekiah. Okay? He told Zedekiah, because Zedekiah wanted to know what's going to happen, so he secretly sent for Jeremiah and says, don't tell anyone that you've been here, but if they find out, you tell them thus and such. Tell me what's going to happen. So Jeremiah did. Jeremiah said, now if you surrender to Nebuchadnezzar, he won't destroy the city and the temple. See? You've heard me say this before. But he didn't trust in God. He didn't believe Jeremiah. So he and his sons went out the back way to try and get away, and Nebuchadnezzar found him, killed his sons, and gouged out his eyes. Okay? But Jeremiah was left with the king's daughters. Okay? And the rest of the story in the book, David's Greatest Throne, will show you. Went to Egypt with the Israelites that went there, but then went over to Ireland, and one of the daughters of the king married into the house of Judah line of Zara. And so today we end up with the throne of David in London. Okay? Now that's an amazing story. All right? Now, let's look at some sins. Okay? We looked at troubles. Okay, we read this in Hebrews, the 12th chapter. The sins that so easily beset us. Right? And they do. Where does that happen most of the time? Huh? in our minds. And especially today with all the television that we have. See? Now, let's come to Romans 7, because this is where we find ourselves today in the same situation that the Apostle Paul found. Now, when I first read that, as I've mentioned before, I didn't know, it makes you wonder, was Paul really converted? Well, it helps you understand that God is not only interested in your actions, whether they are righteous or whether they are sinful, but he is also concerned with your thoughts. What did it say about what the world was like in Genesis, the 6th chapter, before the flood? Huh? Every imagination of the thought of his heart was only evil continually. What did Jesus say? As it was in the days of Noah before the flood, so shall it be in the days of the coming of the Son of Man. And we are assaulted with more Satanism than we even care to know, because of all of the digital things that we have, television that we have, and being able to have books and different things like this. We're assaulted with it all the time. Okay? Now, Romans 7 tells us what Paul was fighting. He wasn't fighting sins that he was actively doing. But when he wanted to do good, we'll see what he was confronted with in his own mind. Okay? All right, go back to verse 6. Okay? But now we have been released from the law. Now that is so misinterpreted by the Protestants, it's incredible. They turn there and say, you don't have to keep the law. But this is the law of the covenant between Israel and God. So they've been released from that so that they could be married to Christ. Because technically, under the covenant with Israel, all of Israel was married to God. Okay? Technically, the church now is betrothed to Christ. Isn't that what Paul wrote of in 2 Corinthians 11? Yes. Okay. Because we have died. Now, when he says we have died, that means by baptism. And Romans 6 shows that we have been conjoined to the death of Christ. Okay? We have died to that in which we were held, so that we might serve in newness of spirit and not in oldness of letter. What then shall we say? Is the law sin? Well, that's what the Protestants believe. Okay? If we keep the commandments of God, we're not trying to work out our salvation. That's what God requires, even of people in the world. Okay? No, he wants conversion of the mind and of the heart. See? So the sins that we're going to be confronted with are not overt sins of action that are observable. These are the sins in the mind that, since you have the laws of God written in your heart and your mind, convict you of the sin within. Now, we've got a whole series on that, how to overcome the sin within. See? So he says, furthermore, I would not have been conscious of lust, except the law said, you shall not covet. Now, where does lust come from? Up here in the mind. You desire this, you desire that, you desire the other thing. Okay? But sin, having grasped an opportunity by the commandment, worked out within me every kind of lust, because apart from law, sin was dead. See? Now you have the law of God written in your heart and mind, but you also have, we'll see, another law that we fight against. Okay? For I was once alive without law, Now think about it. He said he was of the strictest sect of the Pharisees, right? Couldn't get any more law-abiding. But without the Spirit of God and with all the traditions of men, was without law. But after the commandment came, sin revived and I died. Now, that means through baptism, okay? And that means he understood the commandments, okay? And the commandment which was meant to result in life was found to be unto death for me, because sin, having taken opportunity by the commandment, deceived me, and by it killed me. See? Because without the Spirit of God, you don't know the severity of the lust and desire of the mind. See? So you have this battle going on. See? Now, with this battle going on, there's nothing wrong with you. You're overcoming the sin within. See? Verse 12, therefore the law is indeed holy, and the commandment holy and righteous and good. Now then, that which is good, how is that which is good become death to me? May it never be, but sin, in order that it might truly be exposed as sin in me, within. See? Now, I went to the bank the other day, and the teller said, "Are you ready for Christmas?" And I said, "I don't observe it." She looked back at me. She said, "Why?" I said, "Well, everything about Christmas is based on a lie. There's no Santa Claus. He doesn't come down a chimney, and he doesn't bring presents, and he doesn't live in the North Pole. And Jesus wasn't born anywhere near that day." And she was taken back. She never heard anything like that in her life. She didn't know what to think, see. So you see, it shows this. The carnal mind cannot identify the sin within. Only if you have the Spirit of God in you and you're growing in grace and knowledge with the laws and commandments and Spirit of God, that is what is convincing us of sin. So this is the battle that we're going to be facing, okay? So he says, now then, did that which is good become death unto me? May it never be, but sin, in order that it might truly be exposed as sin in me, by that which is good was working out death, so that by the means of the commandment, sin might become exceedingly sinful. Now you need the Holy Spirit of God to understand that, see? Now we're going to talk about when we get to a satanic flip here a little later. See? And we know the law is spiritual, but I am carnal, having been sold as a slave under sin, because what I'm working out of myself, that means separate from the laws of God, separate from the Spirit of God, see? I do not know. For what I do not desire to do, this I do. Moreover, what I hate, this is what I do. Now, verse 16. Here is the key to understanding this. And this helps you understand why Jesus said in the model prayer, forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. It's also called a debt, because when you have a sin, you have a debt that has to be paid, and only the sacrifice of Christ can pay that debt. But if I am doing what I do not desire to do, I agree with the law that it is good. So then I am no longer working it out myself, rather it is the sin dwelling within me. See? Then he said, I fully understand that in me dwells no good thing. See? That is, no good thing of God. So then he said, that he was saved from this through Jesus Christ. All right? Let's go ahead and take a break, and we'll pick it up here when we get back.